All right. Well, happy Sunday, everyone. Happy Sunday evening for East Coast folks here in the US. Happy Sunday, I guess, night for those in Europe. And for those on the West Coast of the US, we're pretty much in the same boat. So, well, anyways, happy to have you here. Happy to be in the stream today. Got my evening coffee because, believe it or not, I'm tired, despite having had a whole weekend to relax and just enjoy the time here. I've been out traveling a bit to some family here in the US this weekend for the first time in 6 months, which has been awesome. Honestly, it's been so nice to get away a bit and get a change of scenery, although of course staying safe in the COVID crisis. But it's nice to be back now after that trip as well. And the first thing I thought I want to do is after a week of not streaming is to get back into it as well and to start kind of staggering out, I guess, what we're going to do and what we want to do with this library. Because the more people we have contribute, the more need I feel there is as well to put a roadmap out there on what we're trying to achieve and some cool things we want to do, and also have your ideas, honestly, to what kind of features you would like to see in this library. I think we're getting pretty close, to be honest, to get not a 1.0 release maybe, but something that is useful for companies or individuals out there ready to track their things. For those on the stream today, actually, how many have seen that there was a Spark AI and Data Summit just last week by Databricks? It was a free event, it was streamed globally, and you can all kind of chime in. Did anyone have a chance to join that Data AI Spark streaming session or conference? If not, it was actually an awesome opportunity to listen in some talks about ML Flow, which is kind of where this idea is coming from the beginning by MLOps.net. So ML Flow, and I'm going to dive into it a bit today, is Databricks' product for machine learning management, more or less. Kind of things we're trying to build there for .net. And it's a great product. Nothing wrong with it, really. You can run it in Azure or in AWS. You can run it locally. It's pretty cool. The only issue with it, of course, is that it assumes that machine learning is only done in Python, which, being on this stream today, you're all aware that that's not the case. And I don't think they will open up to .NET in any time soon. But anyway, they had some really good talks. I didn't really have a chance to look at too many of them, but it's nice to kind of get their idea as well and their roadmap of what they want to achieve. And I definitely see more and more things being discussed on the data side as well, like data versioning and data snapshots and those kind of things here as well, being important. But we're not here to talk about Databricks or MLflow. We're here to talk about MLOps.net, which we are trying to build here, which is good. So what I want to do today, and I'm going to switch to my screen here, is to use a tool called Mural that is just awesome, that I started using very recently here. And it's a kind of collaboration tool. It's like Visio or something like that, I'm sure. Very similar. You have Miro as well. There's quite a few of these out there right now. And I want to jot down some ideas and thoughts, first of all, on what we need to do in this library, where we're going, and ideas we can put into that as well. And if you have any time left, I want to dive into some issues and see how we can contribute to the repo. Does that sound okay to y'all? If you have any other suggestions, please let me know. Just happy to have you on the stream today. So to facilitate this, what I want to do is I want to kind of jot out some of the things we want to talk about. So I think it's easiest always to think about ideas for a product by understanding what phases we're trying to support here. And we are supporting the machine learning process, but there are multiple phases and some are less obvious, I think, than others. So I think it's useful to kind of put them down, and then we can put sticky notes for ideas that come up here as we go along on the stream today. The first one, of course, being the data. There's nothing you can do in machine learning without the data, and this is something we have not explored enough with this tool yet, mainly because it's very difficult. It is very difficult to do this right. For example, a need we have, and we'll dive into this a bit, is we need to track what data was used to train your model. What was the shape of the data? What was the size of the data? Maybe even actually what the data was. And as you can understand, that becomes increasingly difficult when we're talking about 10 gigabytes of data or petabytes of data. How to take snapshots of that? But for our purposes, we're going to see if we can maybe at least conceptualize something on a smaller scale, where I think we'll see the most use of MOFNet anyway. So data being one of those pillars. Once we have the data, another thing, of course, that we started doing a lot of already is training. So actually, let's do something even better than that. Transforming the data. And I'll actually call this model training, because I think we will put it up here as more of a broader term that will encapsulate both the data cleaning portion here as well as the training aspect of the data here. So things we already do here today is we are capturing hyperparameters. Hyperparameters being things like the algorithm we want to train with, and any kind of tweaks to that algorithm we have to understand how a model came to be when we look back at it. So definitely here is tracking hyperparameters, and that should be good. And I'm hoping I'll see online given that email, but yeah. Alright, so I'm going to put one sticky note in here directly just to highlight the idea. Come on. Let's see. So for example, model training here is hyperparameters. And I'm just putting that down there so we at least have that idea. Hey, how's it going, Brad? Good to have you on the line. Stream today. Must be pretty late for you. I think Mitchell, right? Amber Dev, you're also in the UK, right? It's on the other side of the ocean. Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm glad to have you both on the line and the stream today. So, Brett, what we're trying to do right now is sketch out a roadmap here for the library and kind of see where we want to take this. And what I want to do is put buckets of things here, and then we want to brainstorm on those ideas to see what we're doing. And I'm going to jot down some things that we're already doing in the library today to understand how far we come and what we're missing. And we'll see that the thing we're missing will be the beginning and the end, honestly. We're pretty good in the middle of our machine learning process here, but we're pretty poor at the end and the beginning. But model training being an important aspect, of course, of this. But once we have a model, we need to evaluate it. And I'm keeping that separate from model training just because I think it's such an important step here. And if you look at what we're doing today here, we're not terrible here. We're actually pretty good here, honestly. This is probably one of our strengths so far, is that we track metrics. So metrics being F1 score, accuracy, how good a model is, those kind of things. And we also track something called a confusion matrix right now. Manchester, nice. I've actually been to Manchester a couple of times. I probably shouldn't tell you all what kind of fan I am, but I'm a soccer fan. And I'm a fan of one of the clubs in Manchester. I'm sure I don't divide the stream here by saying anything else. Alright. So we are pretty strong here on evaluation. We track things, and this is kind of the, not the whole idea of MLOps, but a big idea is that we need to understand how good a model is and how and why it's good and what kind of aspects it's good at. So a lot of focus have been put on tracking metrics and the confusion matrix and so forth, for good reasons, honestly. But that has led us to not focus enough on data and other things like model training here. But this is something we're pretty good at. But once we have trained a model, we have evaluated a model, what's the next thing you should do, right? Well, the next thing we should do here is we save it. And I'm keeping this separate from deployment for a couple of reasons, but I'm gonna say this like store artifact, a store model here. Yes, I'm a United fan. If that's the case, that's the good answer. And they won yesterday, right? In the FI quarterfinals, I think. I have always been a Manchester United fan for many years, but they're not doing so well lately. All right. So we have saved model here, and once we have saved our model, we're kind of done with this cycle, right? We're training the model, but a model on the shelf or a model just stored away doesn't do anyone good. And in a real case scenario, you never end there, right? You need to put it in production, you need to put it in deployment, you need to get some use out of it. Yes, exactly, Mitchell, that's a good comment there. A lot of companies or products out there use a hash of the data, and if the hash changes, then the data has changed. So it's I think there's two buckets really of data tracking. One is to track changes, which I think you're definitely onto here, which is like, has the data changed between this model and another model? And another kind of school of thought is, okay, well, how has it changed? And I think that's the part that is a bit more difficult. I think for this library, for the use cases I'm thinking of, I highly doubt we're going to get to a place where we are going to track exactly the data. I don't think taking snapshots of the data is really meaningful, to be honest. I think what we need to do is, one, look at what you're thinking about, the hash of the data. That's a good value, I think, because that's going to give us, has it changed? The second thing I think we should look at is what is the how does the data look like? So what I mean with that is, what kind of columns do we have with the data? Do we have 20 different columns or 1,000 columns? So what's the dimensions of the data? How many rows do we have? I would also, if possible, like to get to a place where we can look at the distribution of the data. So maybe store a snapshot of that. So for example, a simple example, fraud, I go back to that a lot, but fraud classification. Do we have very unbiased data? For example, is it like 99% unfraud and 1% fraudulent? Like that kind of information I think is very useful when you look back at models, saying, okay, this model is better and it's more fair, not so biased, and why is that? Well, okay, the data was this distribution. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So I think that kind of information about the data is more important than the data itself. So that's something we should jot down here on ideas once we get to that phase here. But definitely think about those things a bit more as well, because we want to make it practical and we want to make it understandable. There's no point in making it complicated because we won't use this tool otherwise. Alright, so once we have saved the model, we're going to get to something that I'm just so excited about. That is deployment. So this is really, when we're going to use the model some way, right? We're going to use it in tests or stage set, we're going to use it in production, and those kind of things. So how do we get it to that place? And I don't want to build this tool just to track stuff. I want to build this tool to deploy stuff as well. And there's two reasons why MLflow doesn't do it for me. Number one is that it can't store models from ML.net, which is the big issue. And number two being it doesn't support our deployment scenarios, all right? So that's a big issue. And what do I mean with not supporting? Well, if you think about like a Python machine learning model, maybe scikit-learn, maybe TensorFlow, something like that, the de facto way of deploying a model is through a Docker container into an AKS cluster or something else in AWS, and that's all good. I mean, that's a valid deployment scenario, and we are definitely going to take use of that as well. But ML.net offers a lot more. It offers the possibility of embedding the model into your application, right? So creating a web API, you can start polling a file location to see if your model has changed, and you can read it from there directly, or you can embed it into your desktop app. So we can do a lot more, and we need to be able to support those scenarios in a much better way to understand what we have out there. So I'm going to write down some ideas here before I forget it, which is container deployment, file share. I'm going to call it file share. I know it's called file location. Being the two top ones, I guess. And then let's see if I can get another sticky note in here. Another one being manual deployments, and that's a really boring one, but it's mostly for tracking information. HTTP, okay, post, right, that's interesting. Tell me more about that, Mitchell. What do you mean when you say HTTP post will be flexible? For deployment scenario, you think? want to know more about that. So I think it's going to depend a lot on how we store the model, I think. And I think you're on the right, same kind of thought that I am as well. Hey Freeman, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the brainstorming session today. So when I think about the file location here, what I'm saying is the library today uses multiple storage providers, and it can store it in a blob container or actually soon an S3 bucket or a file share. And see, I'm gonna see what you're saying here. Yeah, okay. So let's see what you're saying. If you don't support how I want to store, where is it? If I can receive it proposed to the model, I can probably where. So you mean like instead of post, so you mean like downloading model, I guess, to wherever you want to, so you can get it wherever you want to. Because that's definitely something we want support for sure, like a handle on just downloading it itself. Or actually, are you saying that we should be the ones managing the deployments, so they can just post the data, I guess, against that, and we make predictions and they get it back? So we are also like software as a service in some ways on model serving. That's an interesting thought, actually. I haven't thought about that. I'm gonna put it down even if you didn't think of that. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm gonna put it down. That's a good idea. I like that. So I'm gonna call it model hosting, if that makes sense, where they actually end user won't deploy the model or anything. They can just get it served by us and do the HTTP post to get a prediction. Okay, interesting. I like that. But yeah, you see directly here that deployment scenarios grow quickly. We have quite a few here. For example, when it comes to containers, let's see, document database modify often. That's possible. Right now what we're using instead is we're using S3 buckets in AWS and blob containers in Azure, and we're using file shares locally. I haven't thought about using a document database, honestly. Not sure if that's going to be efficient when models grow, especially when we have things like TensorFlow models trained in MLNet. They can be 100 megabytes or much bigger than that as well. So I think, without being an expert in document databases, that it may be a bit slow eventually there. But definitely open for PRs or ideas if that's something that you would like to see. So when it comes to container deployment though, we will definitely have to think about how we want to do that. And what I'm thinking here is that we want maybe something like Roslyn to auto-generate code. So an ASP.NET Core API, for example, and embed that into a Docker image that they can either download directly, or we can have some kind of connection to Azure or something else to deploy it to. I'm not aware of Vast AI, Freeman. Let me have a look at that. So Vast AI is a GPU sharing economy. I have not heard about that before. Is that something for just training models on, I guess? You can share the GPUs there, I would assume. I have to check out it later. I'm trusting you now, clicking on links here. Okay, so yeah, I figured, yeah. So you can, I guess, spin up different GPUs here, machines, and you can train your machine learning models on them, I guess. Is that idea? That's pretty cool, honestly. Definitely useful. The issue right now with this though is that MLNet that we are targeting this tool for doesn't run on GPUs yet. It runs on CPUs only, and that's something that they're working on fixing. But as of now, it's only a CPU-based library. But this is an awesome link, though. I appreciate you sharing it. Definitely something to keep in mind going forward. Because, yeah, this is something you probably think about maybe interacting with later as well. Alright, I want to get back to this discussion, though, real quick here, about what we need for the roadmap. Appreciate that link. So once we deployed it though, are we done? Are we done with our model here? Is it like the end of life and we don't need to care about it anymore and it's just out there in the wild? Probably not, right? Because I asked that question. Exactly, Mitchell. Monitoring. So we need monitoring and... Oh, come on. It's like you read my mind. Monitoring. We need some kind of monitoring, and I think this is going to come at the end, just like it's something else as well. And yeah, reporting is another one as well. So this is definitely a complicated area, which a lot of work is being done into. But data drift being one of the more common things to check here. So, for example, with the model trained on some data, and then those assumptions has changed, and our model is drifting and is decaying over time. Definitely possible. So, like reporting or analytics, I think that you're into it, Freeman, as well, is something that would be really cool, where the model could feed back its predictions and the data, and we kind of look at that as well and say, okay, well, given this data, it's predicting this outcome. Does that make sense? And how is this kind of decaying over time, and so forth? And bias, exactly, yeah, bias, other things. Hopefully bias is something that we would have already covered here, but we also have to cover it here, exactly. We have to make sure. And it's like, you know, when you think about a software application in production, we think about, you know, errors, exceptions, those things being thrown around left and right. And we have logging to check those things to make sure production systems are working and we address anything be fine. Same thing here, we need some kind of feedback mechanism here for our models to make sure they're performing as expected in production deployment. So that's where like data drift and other monitoring solutions come in. Bias is important. I'll actually put it here as well. And something that also being mentioned a bit, and I'll put it here, is measuring or monitoring model input here as well. And I'll put it as model output honestly as well. So what I mean with model input and output? Well, model input, let's think of this a bit. Let's think of a scenario where, oh wow, lost any imagination here. We have data coming in, and one of the columns that the data coming in on, that we are using a model to train on, let's say product category, has only 5 values, right? 5 values. And we train our models on 5 values. And suddenly we have 15 values, or just 6 values. So the cardinality of that data dimension has changed. And that means that our model no longer is really valid for this, because we probably would have unexpected things happening because of that. So monitoring model input is important because it's going to tell us more about if we need to retrain our model or not. So Freeman, MVP stands for most valuable professional, I think. It's a Microsoft award. It's same as Google's what's it called? GDE, I think, Google Developer Expert, and other kind of industry standards. You can look it up on I think Microsoft.mvp.com or mvp.microsoft.com. But yeah, it's for people in general that contribute to communities and such. All right, so that's definitely something. But what happens then if we have data drift, we have bias, we have model input? What would we like to happen? Well, I would love it if I did not have to train it myself. So some kind of retrain possibility would be nice here, right? Where we automatically can retrain something directly. So maybe that would be webhooks or something like that, where we can expose, saying, okay, well, something is happening. You can subscribe to this event. Maybe the model input has changed compared to a baseline, or the data drift has happened, so model is performing a lot worse than we wanted to perform. Oh yeah, nice, alerts. What kind of bucket can we put that in, Mitchell? I like the thought. I feel like alerts is almost a sticky note. Would we say, I mean, monitoring is... We could put it under monitoring if you wanted to. We can also put it under analytics. or something like that. That could be something we could do. Let's put it under. Yeah, I think let's put it here. I think as well. Can I? And I'm gonna answer your question, Freeman, in just a bit after that. Let's put that here. All right. So we're saying alerts, right? All right. So Freeman, when you said, why does a model training take into account different training strategies? Yes, we should definitely look at that as well. And I have purposely not filled in all of the things here. And I think what we actually need to do here is restructure these, because I can only make them go this way. So we'll do that real quick here. Ooh, sorry if you get dizzy here, guys. As soon as you put a card in, it's up being smaller than I want it to be. Alright, so you said we want to capture other things here for model training, right? Absolutely. And I said like hyperparameters being one of them. And we can make it more explicit as well, saying algorithm here being other thing we want to track here. Other things I think we want to track for model training has also to do with transformations. And I'm purposely not putting this into a separate bucket because I think it's kind of tied together. But things like data cleaning here, right? Or let's call it data transformations, is important, right? And when it comes to this particular thing here, we can, I think, do either one of two things. We can either track how we want to transform our data. So how are we cleaning up our null values or replacing any missing values? FFT, not sure what it stands for, but sounds good. Other things we could do here instead of just kind of looking at our pipeline would be to take a snapshot of our data, our clean data. So I think Mitchell, you were into that earlier as well, maybe making a hash of our data. So we could have a hash on our raw data, and we could have a hash on our clean data. And yes, fast Fourier transform. That was many years ago since I worked for that, so can't have much input on Freeman on that one. Are you thinking more for the? Well, I guess you're thinking about transforms here, but that's not kind of what transforms we're doing though. We are making some other kind of transforms. Fortunately enough. But you can make transforms for Fourier transforms actually on like sound data to transform it to image data, which is pretty cool if you want to make a sound classifier. But anyhow, we have to capture data transformations in some way here for model training. We have to capture the algorithm, we have to capture the hyperparameters. Yep. Good point, Mitchell. So let's look at the data here. I think what your point is getting to, Mitchell, is the data here. So we want to answer the question, has it changed? And I think that's going to come into the hash we talked about later. And we discussed the distribution, right? Distribution. That is something that I think is super important. Something that we also touched over is data dimensions. So dimensions, columns, rows. So we're thinking more about like the number of columns, number of rows. Would it make sense to also capture what columns we have and the data type, so schema? Because that could be something I think we would like to see here, is a schema, I guess, as well, of the data. Okay. I like that a lot, actually. I think location of the data could be interesting, right? Unique, yeah. I think that's going to go into distribution. I'm thinking about that. That's a good question, Michelle. So cardinality or unique values. I think that can go into distribution. I think that makes sense there. Location of the data I think is good. So if it's still there, depends on who uses the tool, I guess. But maybe they want to keep the data at the same place all the time, so we at least can have a location there. Question: what else can we capture on the data? I was thinking also, like, we're already going to have the run date, so we will know when we train the model. So that's going to give us an indication on what the data was then, at least. I don't think we need to capture the creation dates on the data, really. Although that could be interesting, I guess. Because if you don't have a file, like let's say we have SQL data, we won't necessarily have a date associated with the data. So we can't really make that assumption. But that's good. I like that so far. Okay, so we need some features for this for sure. Model training, this one is already done, so I'm going to switch out some things here. Things that we already captured with green here. So we don't have to worry about that. I have to double check the algorithm. I'm not sure if it goes in hyperparameters. I think so. But we have to look at that later. We definitely don't capture anything here on transformations, so that's something we have to do. Alright, so when we come to evaluate though, we are already capturing metrics. How good a model was and so forth. We're also capturing a confusion matrix when it comes to classifiers, binary or multi-classifiers. Hey Doda! Glad to have you on the stream. Welcome! So that's good. So we're doing a roadmap discussion today, Doda, on what we want to see being added to the library. Well, good. Let me know if you need any help or anything. Okay. No worries. So when it comes to evaluation stuff, we're definitely gonna have more things here that we want to do here. So we haven't really got into deep learning yet, Freeman. That's a really good point. So ML.NET, we can do transfer learning primarily, honestly, on neural networks. So we could probably get some of that information as well, but it's not like we're going to care too much about the weights and biases there. But it's a really good point that we probably should capture or support that domain. We're not using that because that's in Python, Doda, but we're using that ML.NET in C# here. And this tool is honestly written for ML.NET in C# for that matter, because we have MLflow otherwise, which I think supports the Python world. But going back to your thought of Fremin here, that is true, exactly. Yep, that's a good question, Doda. I wonder how we would capture that. The reason why I'm thinking, Fremin, I like your thought. I'm thinking for two reasons. One is that of interest for end user in the specific domain? And second of all, do I have that information available from ML.NET already today? I doubt I have the information available. That's the biggest issue, I think. I can definitely see the value of it for larger trainings, but I don't think we have it available. And if the library doesn't have it available, then we have to open an issue to give it to us, I guess. So I will skip it for now, just because it's okay. For reproducibility, yeah. We could. That's true. Well, the one thing that is used though, Freeman, for reproducibility is the seed. So thinking about the training test split, test and training data split, there's a seed parameter in ML.NET you can set to make it deterministic in some ways for the splitter. That could be interesting to store, I think, most likely. At least that's something that has to do with those initial values, I think. And I'm gonna put it up here actually as a note here. That's, I do think we want to store something like that though, for the seed values. So that supervised learning is one type of machine learning, heavily used. and there's many more as well, unsupervised learning and so forth. But I think we'll capture that information in the algorithm that we use. Well, actually, yeah, I think we're gonna capture it there. Exactly, yeah. So this is a common concept. I think that's good. But going back to your thought though, Freeman, you kind of touched about, even though you didn't maybe mean to touch upon it, deep learning support in some way is something we should probably look into. Let's see, so deep learning support, I wonder if it can be an own bucket or you actually want to fit it in here some ways. I think it can go into model training, honestly. There's a couple of changes, of course, to what we're going to capture when we talk about deep learning. But, because things that I'm thinking about here is, so we can actually look at that if you want to. It's a good like segue, I think, because we can see here. So you can look at machine learning sample here. No, it's great. It's a good question, Mitchell. So samples repo here is really good for these kind of things. But in general, deep learning is not fully supported, I would say. They are mostly primarily run computer vision here. There's two things you can do. One is that you can take a trained neural network from like Onyx Zoo or something online, and you can just use it in your .NET app instead. So you can make predictions on something that someone else has trained for you, which is useful in many ways. You can also train your model not from scratch, but you can use transfer learning to do that. So you can take something like Inception v3, it's Google architecture, or you can take ResNet from Microsoft that are specific for computer vision, and you can retrain those networks for your purpose. So, for example, you may have something that is you want to detect your company logo on pictures that go into your building, for example, to see how many work at your site or something like that. And there's no network that can do it for you right now, but you can take something that is good at computer vision and you can retrain that network to catch those things. So those kind of scenarios is out there. There's also a way to use object detection as well to like segment the picture and like find multiple classes in the picture. But you can't do things like Keras, so you can't like build your own networks from scratch with like how many layers of how many layers in your network will you have and what's the scale and so forth. Yeah, I agree. The point I want to make though is that you actually have something called TensorFlow.net, and I don't think this is the one I wanted to go into, but apparently that's fine. So Hyping, who has helped out with a lot of the support for deep learning in ML.net, has... Oh, here it is, sorry. He has a library called TensorFlow.net here. And it's specific for... Well, this is not the one, of course. It is specific for deep learning in .NET. So if you want to go like off the charts and like really have no guardrails, this is a fantastic place for it, because this allows you to build your own neural networks from scratch. So you can make the depth you want, you can make it whatever optimizers and those kind of things here. You can really fine tune this. So you can do like TensorFlow but in C#, like real TensorFlow. And it's actually been really fast as well. Like he shared some news with me the other day actually, that this is twice as fast as if you want to do it in Python. So the performance gains here are amazing. So if you want to do deep learning, you can get some really nice tuning here, because the bindings are in .NET Core and not in Python. So I can definitely see us down the line adding support for this library specifically for deep learning rather than ML.NET. But I think this will take us a little further away from like the mainstream use of this library to more specific stuff. But definitely keep an eye open for this one, because this is really more advanced stuff, but probably more useful things for like a client perspective. But okay, so we could maybe skip the deep learning part for now until we get to that specific part. Yeah, most likely yes. I actually never used PyTorch myself. So Dota, we don't support neural networks only, we support multiple things right now. So right now we just using machine learning, which is not neural networks, it's just algorithms of sorts here, classifiers or logistic regressions, those kind of things. But we definitely want to support deep learning later. Alright, back to the conversation. This is so much fun, but I'm gonna try to get some ideas out here as well. Yep, exact clustering. So that kind of brings me into the evaluation actually, because you mentioned clustering here being one thing. So confusion matrix is very specific to classifiers, and if you do clustering, that is kind of pointless. So we definitely need to track more metrics in general. And I have not worked enough with like ranking and recommendation engines and clustering to kind of know out of the box here what metrics we have. Cool. Okay. But I want to kind of add a sticky note here for each type of, well, for a couple different ones actually, that we probably want to look into capturing metrics for. So we want to capture recommendation, ranking, we want to capture time series forecasting. We also want to capture things like clustering and those things. And it's possible that the things we already have in place for capturing metrics is sufficient. Actually, I think in most cases it is. But I'm going to add some stickers here anyway for these, so we don't forget about other ML tasks as well here. Okay. Anything else here that we want to capture? I think I'll put deep learning here as well. Actually, computer vision. Okay, specify. Can you clarify that for me? Adversarial workloads. What specifically are you thinking about there? I feel like the first thing I think about when you say that is recommendation engines, but maybe you're thinking about something else there. And if so, that'd be interesting to hear more about. Because in many cases I think will end up being a recommendation engine, right? On what kind of ad we want to serve for a specific user that makes the biggest impact. But in those cases, right, we need some kind of feedback mechanism as well to understand how good this was. Alright, let me have a look at that link. I've never heard this term before. Ah, okay, so it's not the GANs, but interesting. I've never heard about it before, and I can honestly tell you directly that ML does not support this yet. Okay, I get what this is though, but I never heard the term before. Interesting. I can tell at least that you are working in this field a lot more than I do for sure. Cool stuff though, this is awesome. Yeah, I don't think the library supports this yet. I would be curious to know kind of what companies out there would use this. Well, I guess quite a few, I guess. Model adversary, estimate attack, evaluate attack's impact. Ah, I see. This is really cool stuff, but not used. Alright, so evaluate is done. If there's anything else there, definitely let us know and we'll put it in there. I mean, this is just a preliminary roadmap, really. So save the model. I wonder if that's something we want to put into, or if you care about that. Right now, I mean, things we have here is, if you're looking at saving the model, it's just, I mean, uploading it, honestly. Upload and download. It's super easy so far. I think this is the wrong one, honestly. I'm gonna call this model repository. model repository, because that's a better name, I think, for what we're trying to achieve here. So things we can already do in the model repository today is upload. We can download, of course. And those are pretty, basic stuff. I wonder what else we want to do for the model repository here. Okay, export different file types to import somewhere else. Yep, I like that. The file type that we can choose from, though, is going to be two, honestly. One, it's going to be a zip file, which is kind of the format of it. But I think something else that would be really cool, though, is automatically export as an Onyx model. That would be a really cool feature. If you can do that conversion directly. So you can use it in some other library. And Dota, you mentioned here, keep them in Docker containers maybe. I don't want to keep them in Docker containers. I want them to be able to go into Docker container. So I want us to keep them as our raw format, so the actual model. But then I want us to be able to deploy it as well. Because the thing with ML.NET is that we'll be using it in different places here. Cool. Have a good night, Brent. Good to have you on the stream today. Thank you for joining in. So yeah, we will definitely we definitely want to deploy it as a Docker container at some point, but we also may want to embed it into our .NET apps here. Yep. So we have metadata. This is a great discussion for you. So we have metadata already, and we have we call it a metadata store, honestly, and that already captures things like evaluations here, like how good the model was, and the track, those kind of things as well. So everything here, like these values here. So I guess the architecture is. Let me show you the architecture real quick here. So the app today, the library today, has two different sections really. And it can be implemented in whatever, Azure, SQLite, SQL Server. We're going to have AWS as well. But in general, they come with two different things. They come with a model repository, so we can store the model and we can get the model. That's the general thing. But it also comes with we call it a metadata store, which is going to be where most things live, honestly. And it's anything to do with the model. So anything with a training run, it's going to be tracked. So metrics here, for example, is one thing. Experiment is the holder of multiple training runs, so for a specific model. Confusion matrix and so forth here. Training time, those kind of things. So we'll see all those kind of stuff here, like different metrics for different types of ML tasks, or the seed values used in training task split. Those kind of things going to go onto the metadata store, while other things are going to go on the model repository here. And we probably also want some other kind of segmentation here of our logic for monitoring deployment, but that's, later down the line. I hope that makes sense in some ways. That's initial thoughts at least, but open for discussion at that point. Alright, Dota, you said, so would you want SQL dump file something? I don't think you want it for, okay, for the metadata, you mean? The ability to kind of export everything about a specific model. I can see that being a thing. Okay. I like that. That's a good thought. Question is where it would go. I'm trying to think of the value of exporting it, though. Let me think about that a bit, Dota, on where it would go. And Freeman, you would like to assign different labels to it. Okay, illegal, sign it off. Okay, I like that. Okay, labels. That would be good. So we want to track some stuff here. And it wouldn't even go under evaluate. Would it go under its own little thing? Miscellaneous, maybe? I feel like we have a miscellaneous thing here we want to track. I'm gonna add a new one here for miscellaneous. Okay, model repository. Okay, we can track it there. So labels. That makes sense actually. You're right. Where's the shift? Okay, labels. Permissions. Yeah, that's a kind of worms, I think. Security. Because yes, you have hit a good point there. We have no security in this yet. Only whatever security we have on the buckets repositories. But let me. Is it okay if I do security Dota as the label here? Yeah, we definitely want some other permissions here. Cool. So one thing that you haven't really mentioned yet here, and something I want to add as a separate thing here, is the client. So right now we are tracking these things, but there's just no real good way of visualizing it. So right now we have here is an SDK package, NuGet packages, right, to track these things, but we don't have any way to see it. So, for example, we can't go in and look at what kind of models we have and how they compare to others. So, for example, maybe we want some kind of compare tool. We can have 2 runs for the same model and we can compare how good they are and those kind of things. InfluxDB, Mitchell. Elaborate on that a bit. I don't even know what that is. Is that a thing? Of course it's a thing, I guess, but... Real-time visibility to stack sensors. Okay, so IoT sensors, I guess, or things in general. Cool. More for monitoring, I guess, in general. Oh, okay, interesting. That's definitely something to look into. I have to think about how we can get use of it, but that's definitely something. And that, I mean, I think a lot of these things here in monitoring is going to fall into the client as well, right? Okay, if we can publish to InfluxDB would be good. Okay, it's a data source. I have to look into this. Okay, so push monitoring here. I have to look into this. So let me add a note for this one, and I'll look into all about. Where would it go? Would it go under client, or would it go under monitoring here, or on the model repository or something else? Okay. It seems like it's gonna go under monitoring for now. To look into what that is and what it does. Okay, cool. I can show you what I mean with the UI, because I think that's probably a tricky part here, what I mean. So for example, let's take something like MLflow. So I'm not sure if you've seen MLflow before, but this is MLflow in Azure. So MLflow, for example, has you can have a workspace in MLflow, and you have one for each of your models. So in our case here, like I used to use an example for like a review predictor, and each of these models here has multiple runs. So each time you train a model, you will get just a run here. This is just a stupid run, nothing special. But you can track things with your run here, like metrics. So F1 score, you can track that. You can add tags or labels, I think, what you're already into, Freeman, which is a good point here. Oh yeah, I know, leaking my email. I'm leaking a lot of things, it's okay. I trust y'all plus YouTube. It's okay. And you can take artifacts. And artifacts here is your models, for example. Those kind of stuff. So each run is going to have these things here with it, which is good. Probably yes. I think you can find my email in other places, so it's okay. But in general, this is how like MLflow works. They have this UI, so you can see how your model performs as well. Because right now we only have the possibility to track these things. Like from the code, we can track our scores, we can track our parameters, we can track our labels. We have no UI yet, like to see these things. And in addition as well, like there's like a model repository here where you can see registered models, and you can push them into staging and production, and you can kind of that auditability all the way back to runs and those kind of things. We're never going to get all the way, I think, to what Databricks is doing if we don't start a company. But at least I want something like this UI where we can also track these things and kind of visualize them without having to go into our databases to look at the data. So that's what I mean with visualizations. And I think we can do more than this. Like, I think we can also do like model comparisons and say, okay, I have this model I trained a year ago and this one now. What is the fairness score between those two? Why is this one better than the other? Maybe even look at accuracy over time or whatever you want to do, and also look at data drift. Those are things we definitely want to look at here with clients. So deployment being a thing here for sure. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of things you want to do here. I'm just going to say model management as a thing here, because I think that's going to be kind of what we're talking about here. Okay. So I'm curious what you mean with that, Mitchell. External visualization is more important than some internal UI. That's an interesting quote there. What do you mean with external UI and what do you mean with internal UI? I want to know more about that. Because what I'm thinking here is that the UI is for the product itself. No, Netflix is never going to use this. So target market for this is, .NET clients, .NET people, C# developers that wants to get into machine learning, companies that want to do machine learning but in C#. Those are mostly the target clients here. And they can be whatever kind of task possible out there they want to solve. Okay, so internal UI will be some client site or something for MOS.NET. Yep, exactly. Just like MLflow has its own UI, I'm envisioning we're also going to have a UI to look at that. So, what is an external UI? That I want to know. Okay. Okay. So make sure you only want access to a REST API that you can pull the data from. Is that what you're saying? So you can create your own visualizations. Or an InfluxDB, I guess. I have to look into what that really is. I guess that's kind of what you're trying to say, is that you want more of InfluxDB style. I think I'm getting what it is. I need to read about it more, I think. I see. Okay, so you want to build your own UI, is that what you're saying? Based on the data sources that can be provided? That's a good point. I don't think everyone wants to do that, but I definitely can see that being a thing. Cool. Okay, I like that. Okay. So I think that's definitely a use case. I don't think everyone wants that, but I think that's a use case. Did we capture that sufficiently in the InfluxDB card here? Or do we want the other card for that? What I'm going to do is API. I'm going to call it API integration here as well for the client. And make sure we at least put it out there. And I'll clean up this card later, because right now they don't make any sense. One thing that you will need a UI for, though, and I'm interested to hear your points on this, is for deployments. So let's say, you can definitely, API client is good. For example, let's say you want to deploy this to a place. Let's say we just do something simple. Let's say you want to deploy the model to a blob container, and then your application listens to that file location for the model, and as soon as a new one comes in, it's going to load that into your ASP.NET Core applications for predictions, right? I'm envisioning that deployment UI is going to be part of the clients. We can also, of course, create an API for that, so you can just do a post method or whatever you want to, and say deploy model to this environment from this run or something. Yeah. Yes, they're technical companies, Dota. This is very technical. Well, I think it sounds like we have two paths at least. I'm going to clean this up a bit more. I think we have one path where we want the client and to do like an internal UI. That's an automatic deployment, I would think. But that's a good question. I think what I'm hearing, Mitchell, and I'm completely agreeing with you, is that we need to have two paths here. One where you can control the UI, control everything from the UI, and then one where you can control everything from external integration points, so API, some kind of InfluxDB support or something like that, where you don't need to rely on the UI to do anything. It can be completely automated by itself. I kind of already thought a little about that, and my thought from the beginning was that we could build a .NET Global tool. Yes, it would be a manual decision, I think. But we could definitely open up for it being an automatic deployment as well, where it just goes straight to deploy to production. Like any other DevOps tool, we can have gated checkpoints, or we could have manual checkpoints. I think we'll definitely get into more complicated things when we talk about that, but definitely possible. But what do you think about building a .NET Global tool as well as a REST API? I think that's something we could make it simple as well, because then you can script a lot of things in your CLI instead of just using a REST endpoint for like deployments. Because I think that'll be simple, because the only thing you need to do then is apply some credentials, and you can say, okay, we'll deploy this model through your CLI or something. Yeah, okay, but let's think about that a bit more. I'll put a deployment here. I think that needs to be its own thing, I think. Let's do this. Let's repurpose this one to automation. And I'm just going to put this in here right now, but API integration being one of them. Yeah. And I'll put the Global tool here as well as a potential. We just want to open up to make sure people can do what they want to. We don't want to enforce a UI on them. That doesn't make any sense. So we'll make sure we open up for that as well. Okay. Looks good to me. So, okay. Sure. Absolutely, Dota. So .NET Global Tool is just a CLI. It's a CLI, honestly. It's a possibility for you to. I'll copy the link in here if you want to. It's just a way to, I guess, organize CLI tools together. So if you, for example, if you build a CLI tool for this, let's say for trading models, whatever, we can then publish that as a NuGet package, and then anyone can download as a CLI tool, so they can do things that they want to do for MLOps.NET, but in the CLI. Yeah, exactly. So that's a great point, Mitchell. I think the thought I have for the UI is that we're going to build all the functionality into the NuGet packages. So getting models, uploading models, managing models, and the data is going to be in the NuGet packages. And then we're going to build a very light UI on top of that in like Blazor that just calls those NuGet packages for everything you want to do. So as soon as like you need to do something in the UI, you just call the NuGet packages, and then if you want to build an API on top of that, it's also NuGet packages. So we don't have to rely on the discrepancies between both of those. Or just everything will be in the core UI NuGet packages instead. So I think that's going to be a good way of putting that together, at least. Hopefully, we'll see. And I think what we're going to do with the UI is, what I want to do is I want to build a small Blazor app, and I want to just put a Docker image around that and supply people that Docker image with a client, so you can spin it up locally. Just supply like 2 environment variables. Like that, they can just run it wherever they want to, whenever they want to. It doesn't need to be this big thing, and they can host it themselves, or whatever. We can build something else later as well for a software as a service. I don't know. Keep it very open, right? That's what we want to do here. All right. So when it comes to client though, I think we have a lot more to add here. Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to do the Excel output, I think. Someone has to come and ask me to do Excel output, like a company, I think. Otherwise, I won't do Excel output because it doesn't make any sense to me. All right, well, I think this is a good start. I can keep adding things to the client forever, and I think I want to clean up real quick here at least, even though maybe it's not the focus right now. So model management being one thing, and I'm talking about runs, experiments, those things. Is that good? Visualizations being another thing. Compare runs being another thing you want to do here. Deployment. We want to manage deployment targets. So for example, what I mean with that is we want to specify test or staging environment. We want to do that, and we want to specify where they are, those kind of things. And that could be like a file share, or it could be a container, or it can be a cluster of some sort. We want to be able to manage deployments in general. So we want to deploy things. Scheduled runs, I like that. Okay, scheduled runs. That's a good thing. Because that could make sense, I guess, depending on where we run. Okay. So we need some webhooks for that, for sure. Okay. Well, scheduled runs is an interesting concept. View monitors. Yep. I wonder if that goes into visualizations, though. Because we have monitors, we have potential data drifts. We can also make them separate, I guess. Let's make them separate. Why not? We'll do this one to be view monitors. I'll put it in one right now because I think we have to think more about what we want to see. But we definitely want to see some stuff here. Visualizations. Okay, schedule run. This is going to be an interesting one. We need more support for this in other ways. But that'd be cool, for sure. So right now what we can do in MLflow is work with models and workspace. Okay. So we're gonna have Docker containers, we're gonna have that. I think another thing we want to do as well probably is to I'm wondering if like generating a Docker image for a model would be useful, and then downloading that image without deploying it anywhere as well. If you want to like completely handle that yourself. I think this is okay for that. Alright, so automation, clients. So deployment, we thought about container, file location. Could put in an image repo or something. Yeah. You actually put me to a good point though, Dota. One thing you want to do is auditability here. Yes. Auditability. I don't know how you spell this. Auditability. Super important. So what I want us to do is for a given run. Okay, let's say we have a model in production. Production model 1, 2, 3. And it performs poorly, for example, it's super biased. We want to be able to go back into the run it was trained on and back to the git commit it was used to train the model on. We already have ability to track git commits or like those kind of things. So I'm thinking we can have a click on a model and it will take us to the git repo and a git commit that contains the code that was used to train this data on. And the same thing for the data and those things. So that would be really cool. So I'm thinking auditability in that aspect, and then exactly, yeah, integration. So I'm going to say third-party integrations here. It's going to be one thing we want to do. With Git, for example, we may want to look at data sources of different kinds. git blame. So we're thinking about, yeah, okay, we could do that. Maybe we can also do like an intersection of some sort between two models as well. So let's say we have two models and you want to see the difference between those two. That'd be kind of cool if you could like show the code for one model and then show the code for the other one and compare those two. Is that kind of what you're thinking about, Mitchell? That'd be interesting, at least. I'm gonna put it up here because I think it's interesting. Model code compare. I think we have compare runs for some stuff. Okay, well that's fair. This is the best part of doing brainstorming, right? Because throwing out ideas out there and like just feeding those ideas and thinking of other concepts. So I think we have like a run comparison of like metrics, but they also have this concept of comparing the underlying structure. So another thing we want to do is compare the data, and that could be like data dimension comparison, for example. Whatever we track for data, we should be able to compare those as well. Like, what are the dimensions? What are the cardinalities? Those kind of stuff. I like that. That's a really fun thing. Alright, I think that's enough for client right now. Deployment. So I'm seeing these as the contenders right now, with probably file location and container being the most common ones. But you may want to have full control yourself, so you may just want to be able to download the model and say, okay, I'm going to deploy to production. All you need to know is that this is deployed to production. You don't need to do anything else. So that's one thing about manual, is like just like a check mark, it's deployed to stage or test or production, but don't care about it because I got it handled. Model hosting, talked about that, being able to just serve the model for someone, and we take care of that. We can have that backed in Azure, for example, or AWS or some other storage provider. It's definitely an idea. I think that's actually going to be a more common idea. I like that a lot, actually, because in many cases it'd be super nice if we can manage our own clusters, right? And just do that. I can see that being the most common way of doing it, rather than this one at least, because this is going to be, well, yeah. Well, definitely see about that. Interesting. I'm trying to think about the difference between container deployment and model hosting. The reason being, to me, what I'm thinking about container deployment here is that we would have connectivity to whatever cluster they want to deploy it to. Yeah, I think, though, what I'm thinking about when model hosting is that we would not actually hold any other our own environment. They would just provide connection strings or credentials to whatever place they want to have it hosted in, and we'll make sure to spin up the infrastructure, make sure to put it in there, manage it, and all those kind of things. When I'm thinking about model hosting, I'm thinking about wrapping it in a web service and then wrapping it in a container, and then putting that container into AKS or whatever you want to put it into. We manage it, so you can call it through a post method, but we're going to probably manage it in a container in that sense. And that's kind of why I'm thinking that these two are pretty similar, just because I think the idea is the same between both. But we could have this option be like manual deployment, so we just serve them a container and they can do whatever they want to with that one. But yeah, let's leave those two for now. I'm gonna name this to manual container, meaning that we will serve them a container, but they have to figure out themselves what they want to do with it. And this is going to be us hosting it in whatever they want. Yep. And this is what is the manual zip, where you can just download yourself and do whatever you want with it. Okay. So this is a really interesting discussion because file location is going to be similar to model hosting. It's just going to be served as a file location, not going to be served as a. So you can't like make calls to it, but you can consume it. Yeah. This is, I think again, deployment is going to be where a lot of value is, because that's really like how we take away some of the complexities and just kind of feed that as a service in some ways. But I'm still trying to make it so that like anyone can use this library, and you don't need to pay anything. You can just use it in your own infrastructure, and I want to make sure it makes sense to them. I'm not really there yet that I want to create a SaaS service or something like that, because I don't want to create a company about this, at least not yet. I want this to be a tool that's open source and free, just like ML.net is free. All right, so that's good. Export Onyx labels. So I'm wondering if this one. No, I think that's fine. It's good where it is. All right. Well, I think this is a really good collection so far. I think I'm happy with what we have. I'm going to let's take a screenshot of this. First, I'll save it maybe, and let's upload that into a repo for now. Can I do that from here? Let's see. All changes are saved. I am wondering if there's a way to get this out, because I never used Mule before. Doda, what do you want to read more about? Yeah, so okay, let's actually go into that. I will handle this later, because I think right now I need to figure out how to get this out, but that's not so important. So I've already started adding some of these issues here, like deployment scenarios, and try to label them here for creating environments and this kind of stuff here. So we have quite a few already, and not all of them are related to things we talked about today, because we also want to, as much as we want to expand horizontally, we also want to expand vertically, meaning that we want more storage options and those kind of things. Yeah, and that's a good question though. That's kind of why I wanted this stream tonight, is to kind of discuss that a bit. And I think this is going to be most of the roadmap right here. This is going to be the horizontal roadmap. So how can we, in a given scenario, provide all valuable options? And then we want to scale this vertically. So we want to say, okay, you can do this in Azure now. You can do this in AWS. You can do it locally. You can do it in Google Cloud. So the different storage providers should be supported as well. And that's my vertical scale of the roadmap. And this is the horizontal scale right here. All right. I think this is great. And I'm going to export this. Here we go, export. PNG image. Okay, let's see if I can open up the email here. And I want to put this up into the repo real quick here. All right, I got the email. I'm going to download the image, hopefully. Let's open it up here and look at it. So here's the image. All right, that sounds good. So let's put this in the README file right now, because this is going to be super useful for me especially, and maybe even for you as well, and for anyone else in the repo here. And what I'm going to do is start off by uploading this one. So we can do that real quick here by creating a master. We have the master branch here. Let me go and put this in the right location real quick. One second, bear with me, and we'll put that in the repo so you can review it at your own convenience later. Find the repo. I'm going to create a new folder here, and let's see, view. Yeah, I was thinking about epics. I'm gonna have like a label on them instead, I think, of epics, because I think that'd be easier, but definitely something we can think about how I want to structure this. I'll call this images, Where, let me see, get the file somewhere. Downloads. Okay, call this roadmap. Let's put that in here. Alright, so let's upload this roadmap. And I'm going to be lazy and just do this master branch because there's no code change here. Nothing to be reviewed really. Normally what we try to do is have PRs for everything, which is great, and get them reviewed by everyone. But this is just an image to repo, and I'm happy to use my admin privileges here to get that up there. Because what I can do then is add this to the README file. Copy the link. Edit the README file. What do you all think about the new GitHub UI, by the way? I think I personally like it. I know it's been a lot of outcry, I guess, about it. Yeah, a lot of people like the old one. I like the new one, actually, surprisingly enough. Let's see, did you do this right? I think it's cleaner, but just me. Let's see, is this the way? Yeah, perfect. I always forget how you do images, but that was apparently correct. Add roadmap. Alright, that is an ugly big picture, but I think it makes sense to keep here on the README file for now at least. Oh, dark mode. Okay, I have to look at that later. I haven't checked that extension out. Alright, so we have this roadmap added to the repo, which is good. I hope it's not like too obstructive in people's face. I try to keep the information here above, tell me more, and the different links above, so you can kind of go into there. And this is kind of not so important anyway right now, so. But cool. One thing I want to add before I finish the stream and get some dinner is that I've created a Gitter channel. So I encourage you all, if you're interested, to join this Gitter channel, and you can come chat with anyone there. I'm going to try to keep discussions about the repo here, so you can kind of just join if you want to talk about these things. So like, I try to work on this repo, of course, outside of these streams, and any discussion points, anything else is kind of being discussed here from now on. So definitely join us if you want to, and keep up to date with discussions, throw in ideas and things like that. What I would really like to know, really like to know, is if you ever decide to start using the repo for any purpose, on your company or just for fun, whatever you want to do it, let me know. It'd be really cool to know if someone actually uses this as well, and what kind of support they would need to be successful with it. I think that would be really cool. Alright, everyone, thank you for joining the stream. This has been really productive. I've definitely got a lot out of these ideas. Thank you for brainstorming with me. We have come up with some really cool starting point here. So awesome. I'm going to sign off right now and grab some dinner and enjoy my Sunday evening, and I hope you do as well. And yeah, Mitchell, definitely join in to contribute if you want to. That'd be awesome. Anyone who wants to join, who wants to contribute, Mitchell, you or Doda, there are a couple of really good, simple starting points here if you want to start, that I tried to create for that. I would recommend, for example, this one, or fixing one of the bugs here. There's one that is super simple, like this one, 135. It's super simple. 136 is also really simple. So both of these two are like easy ones to look at. So if you want to help out there, you can definitely have a look. But anyhow, have a great evening, guys. Good week. We'll see you on Tuesday for next stream. Until then, stay safe, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Alright, bye everyone.